All right, we'll call to order the regular meeting of the Lions Board of Trustees for Monday, October 1st, 2018. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mary Sullivan.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Drystad.
Present.
Trustee Farrell. Present. Trustee Carabas.
Present.
Trustee Law. Present. Trustee Miller.
Present.
Trustee Browning.
Present.
All right, we have a quorum. Would you please stand for the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll take a brief reflective moment of silence, please. All right, thank you. Tonight, just for the public's, just to notify everyone, we're going to have a brief executive session after our public hearings. So I'd like to go ahead and ask for an amendment to tonight's agenda.
I move to approve tonight's agenda with the change of adding the executive session as number 8 on the agenda, so after the ordinances and public hearings.
One second.
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? We now call for the votes. And the agenda is approved. Thank you. As amended. All right. No sheriff tonight.
Oh,
So
heard from him? I have not.
we'll skip the sheriff report. Move on to staff reports, I guess.
I am not quite situated from our workshop. Okay. Okay, so for flood recovery update, I'm sorry. There are several projects in motion getting pretty exciting. Out at the Public Works site, the first civil contract is wrapping up and the grading has occurred where the outlot, well, for the outlot and the buildings. It's looking really good. It'll be very different when you see it. It's level with the rest of the property now. And the second civil package, which involves utilities, curb, fence, foundation, and roads, has gone out for bid and was awarded to DeFalco. I think there were only 2 bids on that one. Awarded to DeFalco, and getting ready to go out for bid on the building. So that's moving along nicely. It's pretty exciting. The 2nd Avenue Bridge project, we are meeting with the neighborhood, adjoining neighbors tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, I believe, or 5:30, to talk with them about any updates from FEMA, and depending on which decision FEMA makes, how that might impact their neighborhood. So we're having that discussion tomorrow night with those folks. Bone Park Phase 2, we are still pending, or still waiting to hear back on moving forward after the environmental and historic cultural survey, or reports have been submitted. We are going to go ahead and request an extension till September of 2014 on that project. 2019 or 2014, sorry, September 14, 2019 on that project. But we are still feeling very confident we're going to be able to move forward with our ball fields and skate park, and are requesting a contract extension with Walsh, who was awarded that and is willing to work over the winter on that project. So that's exciting. Lions Valley River Park, if you've noticed, the dirt is moving. And we have used quite a bit of that out at the Public Works site, and then the contractor gets control of the rest of that to move as they see fit. Northwest Utilities, that's the Apple Valley water line. Again, that project is moving along nicely. We are talking with the neighbors about construction schedule out there. There's a couple options because Boulder County has more restrictive hours of construction than we do. and that will slow the project down. So the neighbors are asking for it to be complete, extend the construction hours and get it done. So we now have to take that to the county to make that request and see where that goes. But that one is coming along nicely as well. We'll be seeing work on that coming up. Eastern Corridor Utilities, awaiting JVA submittal of their final report to the Department of Public Health, but that project is really in a critical state as well. We need to get approval to move that along before that funding is lost.
So will we be potentially okay with the BOD?
The numbers have been going down for the last few months, so, and I saw there were new DMRs submitted today, but I haven't seen that report.
Yeah, it's,
Went down again?
well, it's a conglomeration of the three, so it's much lower than we had the same period last year.
Great. I'm trying to look at major projects here that people are looking at. Pedestrian Bridge at 3rd and Park has been in with DHSEM, and we are estimating some decision on that in the next 2 weeks, if they're going to allow us to build that, and have submitted our extension on that as well. As you guys know, we have to have extension on everything. Construction start date, currently tentatively summer of 2019, if that gets approved in the next month or two. And then we are starting to move forward. Again, we're picking up the 4th and Evans project, the corner, and not the Ped Bridge yet, because FEMA's not going to approve that one, but the corner and the paving and potential curb and gutter along that street. So that one is coming back to the forefront for design.
Second Avenue now has a big chunk of paving where there was gravel.
Yeah, Second Avenue, and has that section that was impacted by floodwaters has been paved over. The rest of it will all be part of the Second Avenue Bridge contract. And that will go from the new pavement on the south side of the bridge all the way through the intersection of Park and Second and a little beyond.
Is there actually gonna be a sidewalk there?
Yes.
With the curb, where there's
On
the
Second?
gravel now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
That will have a sidewalk.
Nice.
But it is much improved. So I guess that could just lead me into my staff report, because that is on that project as well. So Second Avenue, as you may have noticed, the recycling center and the driveway into the wastewater treatment plant was completed this last week. That has now got a asphalt pavement driveway. They removed the temporary fence, the 5-year temporary fence around the wastewater treatment plant, and now installing permanent fence and gate, electric, all of those around the wastewater treatment plant. Recycling center moved on Friday, except for the box crusher. And when is that slated? Do you know, Joe?
I thought it was going Friday, so we're checking into that.
Okay. We, also project-wise, let me run one here. The park hosts at Bone Park have left for the season. So they left on Friday, and they are interested in returning in the fall. They left us with a nice list of things we could do to improve people's experience down there. Very doable over the winter, so we're excited about that. Do want people to know that the Lions Spooktacular will be October 27th, so prepare accordingly. And the school will be hosting a regional cross-country meet again on October 18th. So it'll be another busy weekend for that neighborhood. If you recall, we talked about moving forward with our vendors being paid by ACH accounts versus checks. This batch is supposed to be the first round. We're going to be trying that. And so, yay! No more double signing off of checks. And I don't know if that has been put on hold at all with Anna being gone now this week, but it will be implemented this month. As you know, we've been working on our initial 2019 budget. It's been taking a lot of time. We have prepared an updated staffing needs request to DOLA to get us through 2019. Representatives of DOLA will be here this Friday to approve that. And if so, our current staffing levels will be maintained through 2019 for recovery staff. So that's awesome. We did host 2 different tours this last couple of weeks. The Colorado Water Education Tour made a stop at Black Bear Hole. It was a group of 40 people or so that were touring the region following the flood. So we were one of their stops to talk about the importance of the stream to recreation and economy. We hosted that, as well as a group of UC Denver grad students that were doing a specific unit on FEMA, and also touring from a planning perspective. So we did those 2. We did meet with property owners on Main Street next to 446, the empty lot, to discuss storm drainage and options so that they can build the building they are hoping to. This is a big issue, as some of you know, that storm drainage along High Street really has nowhere to go. Traditionally, it's kind of gone through that lot. And with the building going there, it's going to change the course of the water. So we're working with the 2 adjacent owners to come up with a strategy so they can move forward. We also met with the owner of Green Goo, which is a local business, to talk about some of their economic growth needs. That's an exciting opportunity for us. Starting to talk about the next cycle of the Transportation Improvement Program, also known as TIP, to submit a application for Broadway Avenue improvements again at their next round, which would be 2020 to 2024. We're working on that application, and the Main Street Manager and Sustainability Coordinator are going to be the leads on that application this year for us. We did have code enforcement attend the Rental Madness event that was held recently to talk about renting in Lyons. Said that was well attended and successful. And let's see what else here. Those are the main items for staff update. You will start getting your written reports from me again soon. I have a couple new directors that are putting a ton of detail in those, so I have to get that retrained a little bit. But we are anticipating making some improvements at the visitor center bathrooms. If you've been hearing anything on that, they need some love and attention. So we're hoping to get that done. Water irrigation is being turned off this week, and all sprinklers being blown out. So if people are wondering what, sometimes people follow the town's lead on that. We're doing it this week, knowing there's supposed to be a freeze coming, as well as some snow next week. So we are doing that. Other questions or areas you've been hearing about or need clarification on?
Trustee Caravas and then Trustee Farrell.
Just go back to the flood recovery update real quick. On the Second Avenue Bridge, what are the 2 options again?
The 2 options that FEMA is looking at is closing potentially the east alley access off of Second into the alley, or the west, and opening up the buyout properties along Park Street as the alley entrance.
Because wasn't there an option at they're 4 feet or 8 feet? Do we know we have to raise that bridge yet?
No, that's what we're waiting to
That's
hear
what
back.
And does that?
That determines if we have to close either access.
That's
Yeah.
I think that's what I was trying to remember.
If they make us raise the bridge more than 4 feet, it will impact the alley access as it's currently used.
If we raise it that maximum amount possibly, does that get into the intersection at on Park?
No.
No,
No.
it will. The rise will stop or begin before then. Okay.
Yeah, it'll be a very different slope to that
Yeah.
bridge than what we've been used to.
Then secondly, I wish the sheriff was here. Off-leash dogs in town.
Mm-hmm.
My dog was attacked just 40 minutes ago with my wife again. Third time this spring, summer. Off-leash dogs.
Oh my goodness,
This spring, I don't know what, she's checking the dog now. I don't know if she called 911 or I'm sure she didn't, but $800 someone had to pay to take care of the injuries in May. Just a month ago, several weeks ago, my own neighborhood flew up from below Mark's neighborhood. And then 2 large dogs just on second end by Mojo's. I don't know what we need to do, but I really don't want to have to arm myself to walk around my own town, my wife and my dog.
Absolutely. No, it's enforcement.
So let's get some information out, get the sheriff involved,
Yeah.
because I'm not pleased.
And we'll
And
do
it's
some more
supposed to be a safe
public
family
information.
community, and that's not it.
You know, that's another area we need to tighten up on is dog licensing. You know, we only have about 37 to 50 people a year who actually license their dogs. And that would be another opportunity to stop dogs, tell people they need to be licensed and leashed, and start implementing, you know, having them visit the municipal judge when there is such an incident like what you're talking about. So I think with the full-time code enforcement officer and expressing this again to the sheriff and animal control, that's our 2 routes to implement this more. Maybe they're spending too much time at the dog park and not enough time in town. If they know their names to call. If you call, they will write a ticket. You don't have to call 911, call the non-emergency number. Yeah.
She described the dogs, I don't recognize them from the neighborhood, so I don't know if they're visiting or not,
Oh,
so.
3rd time.
I don't know if you can answer this, this was gonna be a question for the sheriff, but some people were talking about a helicopter late at night that were really close to some houses and then over by the high school.
I heard them at my house as well. I never
Wonder what
heard
that
a
was.
follow-up on what they were. I just assumed it must have been some form of either rescue or, you know, National Guard training or something, but I never
Okay.
heard what it was.
Okay, just curious.
Trustee Miller, did you?
I was just going to respond to Trustee Caravas. You have to call animal control every time that happens. They will come out and they will ticket that person, and they will have to come in front of the judge.
These dogs were unattended, they just came out up behind buildings.
So you don't even know who they
Nope.
were.
Cornered and started biting.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, the animal control will harness them, throw them in the pokey, and the owners will have to come find them, you know? I mean, and they'll eventually get a ticket. I mean, I can tell you that from experience. So and they will issue fines that are stiff. So that's just my advice to you. Call animal control every time.
But we'll do some more public education on that.
Yeah, I think the messaging might have to be that, I mean, because I agree, I mean, it sounds like I'm out running, I don't have my phone with me to call when I see the dog and where, and by the time I get home, I'm kind of like, okay. But I mean, it is just every time you go through Bun Park, or if you're running out the trail toward the high school, people just don't leash their dogs all the way from the parking lot to the dog park. I'm like, there is a massive dog park right here, running at the high school, and they're in the high school football field, you know, dog off leash. You know, as you're trying to run around the track and the dogs see you running and they think that looks more fun than apparently chasing whatever they're throwing for the dog. So it's just, you just don't always have a phone at the time. So I think it has to be more messaging around, if you have a dog off leash, you know, and they call, we are asking them to take it every time, no warnings. Yeah, I agree with you. It's really unpleasant when you have small dogs, particularly, to go walk and feel like you have to protect your dog.
It's just scary, it's
So-
terrifying.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll follow up on that too, but please call.
Okay, is that it for staff reports? Anything else? All right, we're going to move on to audience business. This is the portion of the meeting where the audience is welcome to address the board on topics that are not listed on tonight's agenda as a public hearing. We do have 2 public hearings on the agenda tonight. One for ordinance 1043 and another for ordinance 1044. So if you hear a speech to those two items, please hold your comments until we get to the public hearing. Otherwise, you're welcome to come forward, address the board, give your name and address for the record. Each person will have 4 minutes.
Hi, I'm Chastity Polkovats. I live at 308 Seward Street, and I'm here with my friend and neighbor.
I'm Lindsay Hefner. I'm at 247 High Street.
And we are here to bring it to your attention the need for improved, uniformed, and effective street markings and signage in the Lyons Elementary School Zone, and for pedestrian safety in the north part of Lyons, which we're now referring to as Old Town. We are both really involved in the PTO at Lyons Elementary, and we've been getting a lot of feedback from parents on the way to school, leaving school, on how unsafe the area really feels. I personally walk my kids to school every day and have been for the last 9 years. And it feels really unsafe. So we formed a committee with some parents to identify the problem areas and the safety concerns in this part of town, which you should have a copy of. Just pulled that off of Google Maps and kind of just did a highlighter and circled areas that we feel could use some attention. So part of why we're here is we know that you are beginning the budget process, and so we would like to request money to be allocated into your 2019 budget for markings, for signage, for police enforcement. Really, we just want a whole look at of that radius around the school. We've looked into CDOT and the highway. We know we're outside of the 200-foot limit that usually signs are at, but it's so close. It's like 202 or something. It's really close to the school for the highway. We think maybe there should be flashing lights right there when there's drop-off and pickup times. Maybe in the neighborhoods. Maybe it'd be awesome on the highway. We know that's out of your jurisdiction. Lindsay had some examples that she feels like she wanted to share with you.
Well, we also, there's over 750 kids between those two schools, and a lot of kids I see personally, because coming from High Street, there's a corner there at 3rd and High. I get emotional because it's super dangerous. And I see little guys on their bicycles kind of teetering across the highway where there's semi-trucks driving, and their moms are behind them, but then they have to turn at the corner of 3rd and High. I don't know if you're familiar with that corner, but there's no sidewalks. There's lots of, the cars, a lot of parents park their cars there. There's a lot of blind spots. There's a big ditch on the corner there. Kids have to, anyway, I see it all the time. And when people come off the highway, kind of turn onto 3rd Avenue, they're going fast, and there's old, very outdated signage. Like it says 15 miles per hour. But you know what it feels like to drive 15 and what it feels like when you're standing there on the corner with a child and they're going 35. It's very different. So, it's just my children also cross that street every day to go to school, and I want our children to be able to feel like they live in a small town. They can ride their bikes, they can walk, they don't have to drive, they don't always have to take the bus, they can get exercise if they're coming across town. And I just feel like there should be at least some sort of stop sign or at least a crosswalk or something in some of those areas where there are too.
Thank you. As you're looking at that map, if we have any more time, there's some other areas that the neighborhood north of the school is really concerned about. We feel like there's places where there should be all-way stops. There should be 4-way stops. People should not have this, essentially a racetrack back and forth. So we'll be back. We just wanted to kind of get the conversation started, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else for audience business? Okay, we'll close audience business, and we will move on to our ordinances and public hearings. Will the clerk please introduce the first item?
This will be a public hearing for ordinance 1043, an ordinance of the Town of Lyons amending sections of Chapter 2 of the Town Municipal Code regarding the term of the mayor of the Town of Lyons.
So, Ms. Stafford?
Yeah, so Brandon Dittman, Town Attorney. The purpose of the ordinance is to reflect the will of voters that was expressed during the last election, which extended the term of the mayor. This ordinance would effectuate the results of that ballot initiative, which was voted on by the public and approved. I think that pretty much explains it.
All right, we'll go ahead and open, or I guess I should ask if there are questions from the board first. Great, I've kind of seen my hand before. Okay, I'll open the public hearing. Would anyone like to speak to ordinance 1043? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Ask for a motion.
I move for passage of ordinance 1043, amending Chapter 2 regarding the term of the mayor of Lyons.
I'll second the motion.
All right, any discussion? I guess I just wanted to say that when we put both of these on the ballot, it would have been ideal to pass both of them. The intent was to try to have the town benefit from the full 8 years that's available if the town were using the other statutory town option of 2 4-year terms. Saying, you know, there's 8 years available of service if you go that. We didn't want to do that. So we said, let's ask for the 8 years with the current 2-year terms. So I actually think the board at some point, if it were their will, should try again. It failed by a very small margin, and now with one of them passed, it might encourage voters to say, well, it would make sense to have both of them offer that. So I do think there would be value in potentially revisiting that at some point if there's, you know, when we have ballot questions to discuss. If there's any further discussion. All right, call for the vote. All right, and passes 7-0. Thank you. Would the clerk please introduce the next item?
This will be a public hearing for ordinance 1044, an ordinance of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, amending sections of Chapter 13 of the Town Municipal Code regarding the charging of interest on delinquent utility accounts.
Is there any presentation for this one?
Yeah, another really short presentation. So it was discovered during the recent utility appeals the board has considered. There was a small, what we'll call scrivener's error in the utility section of the code, where essentially the calculation of, or the conversion for percentages of decimals was messed up in a way that didn't really make sense when you looked at both numbers. It's pretty clear from the wording of the ordinance what it meant to be, but the math just wasn't right. And I can't remember who pointed it out, but someone pointed it out to us, like, oh, that's a mistake, we need to fix it. And so we have proposed this ordinance in order to fix that scrivener's error to show what the true intent of the ordinance was. I will mention that there are a number of other issues in the utility code that we've discussed at some length in various contexts that the staff is willing to take on and try and open a discussion on how to fix those. It is our recommendation that the UB given direction to start that process of amending the utility code and to look at some of these issues we've run into recently regarding the utility code. So, you know, while this is not a panacea for the many problems in the utility code, we do feel this is something that needs to be fixed now because it's relatively minor. So the town may carry on its business without this confusion that was in the original ordinance. So I think that's it for that.
All right, are there questions for the staff?
I just have a question.
Trustee Miller?
So when you're looking at the utility bill, it says there's a $10 late charge also that's implemented if you don't pay your bill?
Yes.
So what would that be considered if this is interest?
So there's a separate section of the code where the Board of Trustees may set a general late fee for utility bills. So it's an entirely separate section of the code.
Okay.
So we have to follow both of them.
Okay. I just feel like that's kind of the same thing.
The interest doesn't start till after shut off.
Yeah, and this interest does not start till after shut off.
Yeah, till after the
Okay.
delinquency.
Yep.
That's the difference then?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, we'll open the public hearing for 1044. Would anyone like to speak to this ordinance? Hearing none. Close the public hearing. Is there a motion on ordinance 1044, please?
I'll move for passage of ordinance 1044, amending chapter 13 related to interest on delinquent accounts.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right. Any further discussion?
Yes,
Please, Eileen?
I have a proposed amendment to the motion, and I've got it in written form. I'll pass out copies and read it into the record as well. I would like to amend the proposed section 1 of Lyons Municipal Code, section 13-180, to add the following language at the end of the section as proposed in the motion. I would add this: provided, however, that the town administrator shall not waive, release, or reduce the amount assessed for interest for any account with a delinquency greater than $10,000, unless the Board of Trustees is provided at least 30 days prior to any such waiver, release, or reduction, written notice of the intent to waive, release, or reduce interest.
Is there a second for the amendment?
I'll second that.
Discussion or questions?
I realize that the amendment as proposed to the ordinance was to fix a decimal point error, but because the same section also includes the existing language in the section that gives the town administrator basically unbridled discretion without review to waive, release, or reduce interest, I think the existence of that language makes it relevant to consider at this time, based on our recent experiences of a large account that was delinquent, whether the Board of Trustees should at least be notified of major account delinquencies. There are other provisions in the code that, from what the town attorney just said, that we may get to in separate sessions, that would also raise that. Late fees would be one, terms of payout agreements would be another. But since we're looking at a section tonight on interest, this would be one occasion when I think it would be appropriate for the town administrator to notify the Board of Trustees if there's a large delinquent account, and I picked $10,000, I'm not wedded to that number. If somebody thinks a higher number or a lower number is better, that would be fine with me. It's just a way, in my mind, that we don't have a repeat of what occurred with the recent appeals, so that if an account gets seriously delinquent, the Board of Trustees knows about it. And I picked the 30 days prior to waiving, releasing, reducing an interest, because that would allow for 2 different board meetings. And if the Board of Trustees wanted to give direction to the town administrator, that would give them the opportunity to do so. They wouldn't have to do so. If in a given case the town administrator says, I propose to waive this interest, or I propose for the following reasons, and the Board of Trustees agreed, they don't have to do anything. But I think this would be one instance when it's appropriate that the board knows, because I think if there's a large delinquent account and the customer is going to be relieved of the obligation to pay interest, I think it's something the Board of Trustees needs to know about. Not every small account, but the large ones, I think it's something that we shouldn't have to wait for the auditor to bring to our attention. I think it's something that ought to be routinely brought to the board's attention if there is a large account. So that's the purpose of this amendment.
So
Trustee
I'm
Watt?
feeling a little too close to this issue, and I'd like to recuse myself, but I don't know if I get to come back for the final.
You can recuse yourself just for the amendment.
Yeah,
if you'd
just
like.
for the amendment, so
Okay.
I'm out.
Sure. Thank you. Other questions, Mayor Pro Tem? No discussion.
This is not on the merit of the proposed amendment, but on the wording in. I'm trying to understand, just a little slow, I think, in terms of how stepwise the $10,000 threshold would be identified and the 30 days prior to such. How would that work?
Well,
Let's step through it as an example.
sure. If an account delinquency exceeds $10,000,
So that would be one threshold. Then that would evoke the 30 days?
no, only if the town administrator is going to waive interest. If the because the code provides for 8% interest, we're fixing that section on delinquent accounts. So if the town administrator is going to comply with the code and we're going to collect that interest, no action needs to be taken. But if a delinquent account holder, more than $10,000, comes in and says, I'd really like you to waive interest because I had a legitimate dispute on my bill, times were tough last summer, but now they're better, or whatever the reason is, only if the town administrator were going to waive that interest or reduce it or just release it, should we not? In other words, if they follow the code as written, we don't need to be involved. If they're going to deviate from the code and release or reduce somebody's interest, then you got to notify the Board of Trustees first so we can see why is this large delinquency being treated differently, for example, than smaller delinquencies? What's the reason for letting someone off of a significant obligation to the town?
All right, anyone else who hasn't spoken yet would like to speak? Trustee Farrell?
Yeah, I feel like with the experience that we just went through, I think that the town administration as well as the Board of Trustees has learned a great deal about large delinquent utility accounts. And I feel that that based on some other utility accounts that have come up and being notified about, I feel like our town administration is on a really good path to not have accounts get to such a point where we're going to be in large delinquent amounts. And I'd like to give our town administration the ability to trust that they will do their jobs based on the way our code is currently written. So I appreciate where you're going, but I almost don't think that this is necessary at this time.
So I guess my comments, I actually agree with Trustee Farrell, and I don't necessarily, I guess I have a little bit of an issue with just the approach. If we want to limit the authority of the town administrator to waive fees for only smaller accounts, I'm open to considering that, but I also worry about trying to insert new language in what was intended to be a really simple fix of just correcting a math error. And I would like to look at this holistically with all of the other potential changes and corrections to the whole audit procedure, or appeal procedure, I guess, and some of the other things. I'm worried that by doing this, we may end up introducing a conflict that we may want to address in a different part of the code later on. So I'd rather wait and do this as part of a different process. And I also feel like this, I agree, I don't know if we really need it, but if we want to have that discussion, I'd prefer to do it at a different time with a different ordinance that's really looking at how the staff is managing the fees. I think the way it's worded by saying you just have to come to the Board of Trustees, it really puts management function under the board instead of the staff. And I do think that needs to stay with the staff. The board should be policy. And if we want to have a policy that says we're going to limit the ability to waive any fees at all to only smaller accounts, maybe that's one approach, but this notification to the board, then what do we do with it? It kind of leaves this open, unanswered question of what then, are we authorized by the rest of our code to actually then direct staff? It's unclear by inserting the board, I guess, at this stage, whether we're really creating now a new problem by trying to fix it this way. I'll let staff comment maybe on this as well.
Support them.
I think everybody, I'm sorry, Trustee Karen.
Just based on what you're saying, and what Brandon mentioned, that there's other issues in this section. Are we looking at doing something in the coming months to the next year of this current board that we're going to look at this?
Well, I think the request from the town attorney was that after we deal with this issue, we give direction to have the UEB review the utility code and come back with recommended modifications to that process.
Review.
We could give that direction.
I was going to say that, and then also I know what you and Trustee Farrell said about, we've already learned from the experience. I can also see 10 years from now, no one sitting around this circle here is even here or even say in town. Well, I hope not. By the statement, but you don't know. It's just it is an extra reminder to put that. It's just one of those things that I could see definitely looking at as we review this section.
Okay, I'm sorry, the town administrator wanted to have a comment first.
Well, this is the first time I've seen this, so I haven't had time to really think about it, but I actually think it could open us up to even more people coming in and asking for waivers from it because they know I can authorize up to $10,000. I actually prefer there not be a change and that I don't get the ability to make those exceptions unless there are extenuating circumstances that, you know, there's a death in the family and they're out of the country for a month or something. I would have this number be much less. We usually don't have bills carried over $1,000. So 10,000 is an extremely high amount that I definitely would want to inform the board. In the last situation, I felt as if the board, it was more of a memorandum of understanding issue than it was a utility issue. And maybe people didn't realize how big it had gotten, but I thought there was an awareness that there wasn't. So I don't mind having a formal reporting mechanism. But I agree. I think I would feel better having it a little more review than adopting it on the fly tonight and actually creating something that then people can say, well, you have the ability to waive that. You know, and creating more issues for us, actually.
Okay, and we've had discussion, so I'm gonna ask if we can go ahead and call for the vote on the amendment.
Okay, let me say one thing.
Trustee Browning?
Could I ask the attorney real quick? You asked for staff, direction to staff. Were you looking for that, to get that tonight or at some other time? I didn't understand.
I think the board can entertain that after
Right.
the motion if we like.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, tonight I think was the original plan. But
Okay.
All right, I'll call for the vote on the amendment. So the amendment fails 5-1, 1-5, I should say. Do we want to invite trustees while I come back in? Okay, is there any further discussion on the overall motion to approve the ordinance? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote on ordinance 1044. All right, that passes 7-0. Okay. Do we have, is the attorney expecting us at a specific time for the
No,
executive session?
I said around
You
8,
said-
but
okay, so
he's
we're good.
available anytime.
You don't want us
Yeah.
to keep going until 8 o'clock?
Yeah, we have time, so.
Okay, no, I think it could take us some time to get organized too. So we, if you weren't in the room, we did modify the agenda tonight to move our Honeywell executive session up to after the public hearings. So we apologize, we know this is not the most convenient way to do it, but we do need to ask everyone to clear the chambers for a short executive session. So we'll ask you to do that now, and I will ask for the motion to go into executive session.
I move to go into executive session. I move to go into executive session pursuant to CRS sections 246402-4E and 246402-4B for the purpose of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators, and for legal advice from attorneys representing the town regarding the town's energy cost savings contract with Honeywell International Incorporated for the new wastewater treatment plant. And to return to the board meeting at the end of the session.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, any further discussion? Call for the vote, go into executive session. Thank you. We will